Welcome back to Farmyard Care, where we turn ordinary backyards into productive, self-sufficient homesteads. Let me ask you something honestly. How much did you spend on chicken feed this month? $50? $100? Maybe even more. Every month, commercial chicken feed seems to get more expensive, and many backyard farmers simply accept it as part of raising poultry. We keep buying bag after bag, carrying those heavy sacks home, watching the cost climb, and rarely stopping to ask whether there might be a smarter way. But what if the system most of us were taught to follow is the very thing keeping us dependent? What if some of the weeds you have been pulling from your garden and throwing away are actually valuable feed resources that could support your flock's health? Today, that cycle of relying only on store-bought feed starts to change. In this video, we are going to look at 13 powerful plants that can grow once and continue feeding your chickens season after season with little to no cost. These are not just random greens tossed into the run. They form a living feed system built in 3 layers: a green layer for daily leafy nutrition, a protein layer for stronger growth and production, and an energy and health layer to help keep your animals active, resilient, and well-fed throughout the year. So, are you ready to stop pouring your hard-earned money into feed bags and start taking real control of your homestead? If building a more self-sufficient farm matters to you, make sure to subscribe to Farmyard Care, because this is exactly the kind of practical knowledge we share here. Now, let's get into the 13 plants that can help replace your chicken feed completely. 1. Amaranth. The dual-purpose powerhouse plant number 1 is amaranth. If you have never grown this plant with your flock in mind, you may be missing one of the easiest and most productive feed crops you can add to a small farm or backyard homestead. What makes amaranth so valuable is that it gives you 2 feed sources from one planting. First, the leaves are tender, green, and nutritious, which makes them easy to harvest fresh and feed directly to your chickens as part of their daily greens. Then, as the plant matures, it produces large seed heads filled with protein and energy. Those seeds provide the kind of calories your birds need to stay active, maintain weight, and keep producing through the season. Amaranth grows quickly in warm weather, does well in USDA zones 5 through 11, and does not ask much from you once it is established. And here is what makes it so impressive. One single amaranth plant can produce tens of thousands of seeds in just one growing season. That means you are not growing a plant that feeds your flock one time. You are growing a plant that can feed them again and again, and when the season is finished, nothing goes to waste. The stalks can go straight into the compost pile, where they help feed your soil and prepare your garden for the next round of growth. 2. Moringa. The long-term protein anchor. If amaranth is the fast starter in this system, then plant number 2, moringa, is the long-term protein anchor. Many experienced growers call it a protein tree, and once you understand how it works, you will see why. Every time you cut moringa back, it responds by growing fuller and stronger. That makes it an excellent plant for repeated harvesting. Its leaves are loaded with nutrition, and gram for gram, moringa leaves contain more protein than eggs. For anyone raising poultry, goats, or other small livestock, that kind of living protein source is extremely valuable. Moringa grows best outdoors in USDA zones 9 through 11, but if you live in a cooler climate, you can still grow it in containers and move it when needed. Chickens usually eat the leaves eagerly, and for goats, adding moringa to the diet can help support better milk production. You plant it once, care for it properly, and it can keep giving you harvest after harvest with almost no ongoing feed cost. 3. Comfrey. The deep-rooted healer. The first 2 plants give us fast greens and strong protein, but plant number 3 works in a different and very important way. That plant is Russian comfrey. Comfrey does 2 major jobs on a homestead at the same time. Above the soil, it produces large, soft leaves that can be cut back several times in one season and fed directly to your flock. When dried, Russian comfrey leaves can contain up to 25% protein, which is higher than most grasses and very useful for poultry nutrition. But the real strength of comfrey is below the ground. Its roots grow deep into the soil, reaching minerals and nutrients that many shallow-rooted plants cannot access. Then the plant pulls those minerals up and stores them in its leaves. When your chickens eat those leaves, they are receiving deep soil nutrition without you having to buy extra supplements. Poultry farmers have found that diets containing 20% comfrey can replace about 1/5 of expensive store-bought feed, while also helping produce eggs with a richer, deeper yellow yolk. Comfrey grows well in USDA zones 3 through 9, which makes it a very cold, hardy choice. Just remember to let the leaves wilt slightly before feeding, because fresh leaves have tiny hairs that may irritate young chicks. 4. The zero soil miracle. Now, let's ask a different kind of question. What if you could grow chicken feed without soil at all? Plant Plant number 4 takes us away from the garden bed and onto the water. Duckweed is a tiny aquatic plant that floats on the surface of still or slow-moving water. It may look simple, but under the right conditions, it grows at an incredible speed. In fact, duckweed can double its mass every 24 to 48 hours. That means a small amount can turn into a steady feed source very quickly. Its protein content is comparable to ingredients used in commercial feed, which makes duckweed one of the most efficient feed options on this list. You do not need a large pond to begin. A shallow container, basin, or simple tank can be enough to start growing it. Once established, it becomes a self-regenerating, floating feed source that can help reduce your dependence on bagged feed. 5. Azolla. The green gold mine if duckweed surprised you, plant number 5 may impress you even more. Plant number 5 is Azolla. At first glance, Azolla looks like nothing more than a thin green carpet floating on the surface of water. It is easy to ignore if you do not know its value. But Azolla is a nitrogen-fixing aquatic fern, which means it can pull nitrogen from the air and turn it into plant growth without needing chemical fertilizer. That is one reason many experts call it a true green gold mine for small farms and livestock systems. Azolla contains about 24.46% crude protein, helping meet the nutritional needs of animals at a very low cost. And here is where it becomes especially valuable for poultry keepers. Birds that receive their normal feed with just 5% extra Azolla supplementation can show a 10 to 12% increase in total body weight. It can also help improve egg production in laying hens. Growing Azolla is simple. You can dig a small pit, line it with a plastic sheet, add sieved soil, then mix in a slurry of cow dung and water to create the right growing environment. From a single pit, it is possible to harvest up to 12 kilograms of Azolla daily. It grows well in USDA zones 7 through 11, and in colder regions, you can still cultivate it in containers. 6. Stinging nettle. The misunderstood medicine plant number 6 is going to sting a little, and I mean that literally. This plant is stinging nettle, and many homesteaders have been pulling it out for years without realizing they were throwing away one of the most useful natural feed plants on the farm. Once stinging nettle is dried or slightly wilted, the sting disappears completely. What you are left with is a highly nutritious green feed that can support your flock in several important ways. It contains more iron than spinach, which makes it especially valuable for overall strength, feather condition, and egg quality. But the benefit does not stop there. Stinging nettle also has natural properties that support gut health and may help reduce internal parasite pressure in your flock. For anyone raising chickens, that matters, because healthy digestion is one of the foundations of strong birds and steady production. It grows abundantly across USDA, zones 3 through 10, and spreads especially well in nitrogen-rich areas. The best part is that it often costs you nothing. In many cases, you may already have free, high-quality poultry feed growing right along the edges of your garden. 7. Sunflowers. The boredom busters. Now let's move into the energy layer. Plant number 7 is one most people already recognize, sunflowers. But many backyard chicken keepers never think of them as a serious feed source. Sunflowers belong in this system because their seeds can contain up to 26% protein, along with high levels of healthy fats. That combination gives your flock the fuel they need to maintain body weight, stay active, and support egg production, especially as the colder months get closer. But sunflowers are not valuable only because of nutrition. When chickens are allowed access to the plants, they naturally scratch around the base, peck at fallen seeds, and work at the seed heads. This gives them something meaningful to do. It reduces boredom, lowers stress, and encourages natural foraging behavior instead of having birds stand around eating commercial feed simply out of habit. Sunflowers grow well in USDA zones 4 through 9 and require very little maintenance once they are established. They are simple, productive, and one of the easiest ways to add both food and enrichment to your flock's environment. And before we move on, if this video has brought you a useful idea, a smile, or even a small moment of peace, take a second to subscribe to Farmyard Care and share it with a friend. It truly helps us keep bringing these practical homestead secrets to more people. 8. Calendula. The yolk enhancer plant number 8 is calendula. Many people grow calendula simply because it is beautiful. But on a working homestead, this flower is far more useful than it looks. The petals of calendula are rich in carotenoids. These are the same natural compounds that commercial egg producers often pay to add into feed, so egg yolks look deeper, richer, and more vibrant. So the question is simple. Why buy artificial additives when you can grow the source yourself? When you feed calendula petals to your chickens, you can begin to see the yolks deepen in color naturally within a few weeks. For anyone selling eggs or simply wanting better-looking home eggs, this is a small plant with a big payoff. Calendula also brings another benefit to the garden. It attracts pollinators, supports the surrounding growing space, and fits beautifully into a mixed homestead planting system. It grows across USDA zones 2 through 11, which means almost anyone can grow it somewhere. It is beautiful, practical, and useful for both your garden and your flock. 9. The Black Soldier Fly System, Banana and Papaya Host Plants. Plant number 9 is something truly different. This is not just one plant. This is a self-generating protein system built around host plants like banana and papaya. When you grow the right host plants on your homestead, you create conditions that naturally attract black soldier flies. And when those flies lay eggs, the larvae become one of the most valuable live protein sources your chickens can eat. Black soldier fly larvae can contain up to 40% protein, up to 30% healthy fat, and important amino acids like methionine. For poultry, that is powerful nutrition in a small natural package. Instead of buying expensive protein supplements, you are creating the environment that produces fresh, living feed on a repeating cycle. The system becomes even better because these larvae can consume kitchen scraps and other organic waste. That means food scraps that might have been thrown away can be converted into high-quality chicken feed. This is exactly the kind of closed-loop system that makes a homestead more efficient, less wasteful, and less dependent on the feed store. 10. Sweet potato vines. The ground cover champions plant number 10 is sweet potato, and this is one of those crops where many people focus on the root and overlook one of the best parts of the plant. Most growers plant sweet potatoes for the tubers, but here is what surprises a lot of farmers. The leaves and vines can actually contain more protein than the tubers themselves. That means the part many people ignore, cut away, or leave behind can become a steady source of green feed for your animals. Sweet potato vines spread quickly across the ground, and that gives you two benefits at once. They help cover the soil and suppress weeds naturally, while also producing continuous leafy growth that can be fed to chickens, pigs, and rabbits throughout the season. Then, when colder weather arrives, you still have the tubers underground as an energy-dense winter feed reserve. In warm areas, sweet potatoes can grow as a perennial in USDA zones 9 through 11. In cooler regions, especially zones 5 through 8, they still perform very well as a productive annual crop. 11. Leucaena and Siberian pea shrub. The global legume anchors plant number 11 is built for long-term value. If you live in a warm climate, Leucaena is one of the best options to consider. It is a fast-growing tropical legume tree, and its leaves have been studied as a protein supplement comparable to commercial soybean meal. That is important, because soybean meal is one of the major protein sources used in livestock and poultry feed. With Leucaena, you are growing a living protein source right on your own land. It also fixes nitrogen, which means it helps improve the soil while producing leaves your flock can eat. But if you live in a cold, harsh climate, there is another choice: Siberian pea shrub, also known as taste or tree lucerne. This perennial tree can offer an impressive 24% to 36% protein and is extremely tough once established. It can survive down to USDA hardiness zone 2, which makes it valuable for homesteaders in colder regions. Think about the return here. You may spend a small amount at the beginning on plants or seeds, but in return, you can create a high-protein feed source that keeps producing for 10, 20, or even 30 years. That is the kind of investment that can change the economics of a small farm. 12. Chicory. The subsoil minor plant number 12 is chicory. Many homesteaders walk right past this plant or mistake it for just another weed, but chicory has a deep-rooted strength that makes it very useful in a livestock system. Its long taproot reaches down into subsoil layers where many shallow-rooted plants cannot go. From there, it pulls up trace minerals and stores them in the leaves. When your flock eats those leaves, they are getting nutrients that would otherwise stay locked deep in the ground. Research on pasture-raised poultry also shows that regular chicory consumption can help naturally reduce internal parasite loads. That makes it more than just a feed plant. It can also support natural health management in your flock. Chicory self-seeds each season, needs no regular replanting once established, and grows well in USDA zones 3 through 9. For a low-maintenance homestead, that is exactly the kind of plant you want working quietly in the background. 13. Lamb's quarters. The ultimate free feed. Finally, we come to plant number 13, and this one may surprise you the most because it might already be growing somewhere in your yard. Plant number 13 is lamb's quarters. Most people treat it like an annoying weed. They pull it, toss it aside, and never think about it again. But lamb's quarters is actually a very useful feed plant. It contains more calcium and more iron than commercial spinach, which makes it valuable not only for your flock, but also for your overall homestead food system. It self-seeds aggressively, grows well in disturbed soil and along garden edges, and appears across USDA zones 3 through 11. Best of all, it costs you nothing. You do not need to buy seed, fertilizer, or special equipment to benefit from it. And here is the final advantage. Lamb's quarters is edible for humans too. That makes it one of those rare plants that can help feed both your family and your flock from the same patch of ground. Breaking the chains of dependency. So there you have it. 13 plants, 3 feeding layers, one living system that can change the way you raise poultry. When you build this kind of system, you are not just feeding chickens. Ducks can forage on duckweed and azolla. Quail can benefit from amaranth seeds. Rabbits can eat comfrey and chicory. Your garden, your animals, and your soil begin working together as one self-sustaining farm system. Homesteaders who use even half of this approach often report reducing feed costs by 40% to 70%. But here is the important part. Do not try to start all 13 plants at once. That is one of the fastest ways to become overwhelmed and give up. Start small. In the first week, plant amaranth and calendula. If lamb's quarters is already growing in your yard, stop pulling it out today. Next month, set up a simple container for duckweed or dig a small pit for azolla. Let the system grow and mature one step at a time. This is not only about saving money. Every useful plant you put into the ground is one less bag of feed you need to buy, one less bill you have to carry, and one more step away from depending completely on an industrial feed system that was never built to favor small farmers. When your soil becomes stronger, your plants become stronger. When your plants become stronger, your animals become stronger. And when your animals are healthier and your farm is more productive, your family's food security becomes stronger too. Now I want to hear from you. Out of these 13 plants, which one are you going to start with first? Drop the number in the comments, whether it is plant 1 or plant 13, because every self-sufficient farm begins with one decision. If this video gave you a new way to look at your homestead, hit the like button so more farmers can see it, and subscribe to Farmyard Care for more practical ideas on sustainable living. Go plant your seeds. Your chickens will thank you. Your wallet will thank you. And one day you may wonder why you did not start doing this years ago. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.